You arrive at the foot of the mountain, just as the sun is thinking about calling it a day. It hangs low in the sky like it had a long shift and can't wait to clock out. The light is soft and golden, warm enough to touch your face, even in the cool mountain air. For a moment you just stand there, taking in the view, the tall misty peaks, the patches of pine trees climbing the slopes, and the long stretch of cobblestone path that leads up toward the quiet wooden lodge waiting somewhere above. The air smells different here. Fresher, cleaner, like the wind went through a spa treatment on its way down the mountain. Every breath feels good, slow, relaxing. You feel your shoulders drop a little, the kind of drop they haven't had in a long time. And you haven't even started walking yet. When you finally take that first step onto the cobblestone path, the stones greet you with a soft crunch. It's a surprisingly pleasing sound. Crunch, crunch, gentle and steady, like nature's version of ASMR. Pine trees stand tall on both sides, their branches swaying slightly as the wind brushes through them. It's the kind of wind that doesn't try to show off, just soft, cool, whispery, like it's politely saying hello. Somewhere far ahead, you hear the faint sound of a waterfall. It's distant, calm, almost shy. Not the roaring, dramatic movie kind, more like the "don't mind me, I'm just here existing peacefully" kind. The sound mixes with the wind, the trees, and your soft footsteps, turning the whole walk into its own little soundtrack. You don't need headphones here, nature already made a playlist. The sky shifts as you walk. Orange, then gold, then a soft pink brushes across the clouds. The mountain shadows stretch long across the trail, and the mist hovering on the slopes catches the light in a way that makes everything look slightly magical. The kind of magical where you expect nothing unusual to happen, but also you wouldn't be shocked if a friendly mountain spirit waved at you from a tree stump. It's that peaceful. The lodge finally comes into view as the path turns. It sits on a raised clearing, tucked between tall trees like it grew there naturally. The building is wooden, old but sturdy, with deep brown logs stacked neatly and beautifully. Warm light spills from the windows, glowing softly through the glass. It looks like the kind of place that smells like fresh cookies even when nobody baked anything. A small lantern hangs on the porch, swinging gently in the evening breeze. The light inside it flickers like it's alive, dancing on the wooden floorboards. Carved wooden pillars hold up the porch roof, each one shaped with careful patterns of vines, leaves, and tiny mountain flowers. Someone put love into those carvings, and you can feel it even from a distance. A thin ribbon of smoke curls from the chimney, drifting lazily into the sky. It smells faintly like burning cedarwood, warm, cozy, nostalgic, the kind of scent that makes you think of blankets and stories by a fire. Just catching the smell makes your whole body relax a little more. It's almost unfair how comforting it is. As you get closer, the crunch of your footsteps softens. The lodge feels quiet, not empty, quiet, but safe quiet. A peaceful kind of stillness, like the world is slowing down just for you. The porch creaks softly as you step onto it. It's an old lodge, so of course it creaks. But it's a friendly creak, like it's welcoming you, not warning you. You pause before the door, taking in the little details. The wood is polished smooth, warm-colored, and decorated with a simple wreath made of small pine branches and dried mountain flowers. Not the fancy kind, just sweet, natural, handmade. The doorknob is brass, slightly worn from years of use. It feels solid when you touch it, reassuring in a quiet way. When you open the door, the warmth hits you instantly. Not heavy warmth, gentle warmth. The kind that wraps around you like a soft blanket that knows exactly how tired you are. The smell of cedarwood is stronger now, mixed with a hint of something sweet, maybe vanilla, or maybe it's just the wood playing tricks on your brain. Either way, it smells amazing. Inside, the first thing you notice is the fireplace. It's big, built from smooth river stones stacked perfectly, and it holds a crackling fire that glows orange and gold. The flames pop quietly, sending tiny sparks upward in little bursts before they fade. The whole room flickers with the soft light, giving everything a cozy shimmer. The floor is wooden and covered with plush woolen rugs that look handmade. Not fancy, just soft. The chairs near the fire are thick, cushioned, and look like they might hug you if you sat in them. A wooden table sits in the corner, covered with books, an old lantern, and a bowl of pine cones that someone definitely placed there on purpose. Not because pine cones are essential, but because they just look lodge-wide. The air is warm, the kind of warm that makes you want to sigh in slow motion, and you do, a nice long sigh. The kind that feels like you're letting go of a whole week of stress in one breath. The faint smell of hot tea drifts from somewhere deeper inside the lodge, probably from the kitchen. It blends with the woody scent in the air, mixing into something so relaxing that your eyelids feel heavier just standing here. If calmness had a smell, this would be it. You glance back out the window one last time. The mountains are darkening as the sun sinks behind them, and the sky is turning into deep shades of purple and navy. The lantern on the porch flickers softly, glowing in the early night. For a moment you just stand there, breathing it all in. Mountain air, warm light, soft smells, cozy silence. Then you close the door gently, not because you have to, but because it feels right to do it quietly. The lodge feels like the kind of place where loud noises simply don't exist. You're inside now, safe, warm, wrapped in peace. And your evening in the mountain lodge has officially begun. The warmth of the lodge wraps around you like it's been waiting all day for you to show up. The door clicks softly behind you, and for a moment you just stand there, soaking in the glow of the fireplace and the soft golden light coming from the hanging lamps. There's something about this place, like it knows exactly how tired people are when they arrive and decides to turn the coziness up to max just for them. You take a few steps inside and the wooden floor creaks gently beneath you. Not the spooky horror movie kind of creak, more like the floor is stretching after a nap, saying, "Ah yes, a new guest." The rugs feel thick and warm under your shoes, and the whole lobby smells like cedar wood and a hint of something sweet. Maybe honey, maybe vanilla, maybe a secret lodge recipe that no one talks about. Before you can take another step, someone appears from around the corner. The lodge caretaker. They don't rush, don't startle you, don't pop out like a jump scare. They move slowly, kindly, like a walking warm blanket. Their smile is soft, the kind that instantly makes you feel at home. They greet you with a quiet voice, Not whispering, but just smooth. Calm. Like they've mastered the art of bedtime. Level talking 24/7. Long trip. They ask with a small grin, even though they already know the answer. Everyone who arrives here looks a little tired, a little stunned by the mountain beauty, and a little relieved to have reached this cozy place. You tell them it was a good trip, and they nod like they're proud of you for making it. Then, with the slow, relaxed confidence of someone who has hosted 1,000 peaceful evenings, they gesture for you to follow. The hallways of the lodge feel like walking through a gentle memory. The walls are paneled wood, smooth and warm in color, decorated with old photographs of the mountains in every season. Sunlit peaks in summer, deep snow in winter, golden leaves in autumn. Each photo looks like it belongs in a calming documentary where someone with a soothing voice explains how peaceful nature is. The caretaker walks at an unhurried pace, footsteps soft on the wooden floor. You follow behind, listening to the faint creaks, the distant crackle of the fireplace back in the lobby, and the ever-present scent of warm cedar drifting through the air. It almost feels like the building itself is breathing slowly, trying to help you match its chill pace. You pass by a few other rooms along the hallway. One looks like a reading lounge, and you catch a glimpse of someone curled up in a big armchair, holding a book and sipping something that is definitely tea. Another guest sits near a window, journaling quietly. Nobody talks loudly here. Nobody even moves quickly. It's like the lodge has a built-in slow motion filter to keep the vibes peaceful. The caretaker leads you up a short wooden staircase. The steps groan a little under the weight, not in a complaining way, more like a polite, "Someone's here." A lantern on the wall flickers gently, casting soft shadows that move like sleepy waves. Your room is near the end of the corridor. The caretaker stops in front of a wooden door with a small carved mountain symbol above the handle. The carving looks handmade, a little uneven in the charming way that only real craftwork can be. The caretaker opens the door slowly and steps aside so you can look inside. You take a breath. Then you take another one, because the room is even cozier than you imagined. A big bed sits against the far wall, layered with thick quilts in warm, earthy colors, soft browns, deep reds, gentle creams. The blankets look like clouds pretending to be fabric. They are the kind of blankets that make you sleepy just by looking at them. The pillows are stacked neatly, fluffy enough to possibly knock a person out instantly. A window next to the bed looks out over the darkening mountains. The glass is foggy at the edges from the warmth inside meeting the cool evening air outside. Even from here, you can see hints of purple sky, fading light, and tall silhouettes of pine trees swaying in the breeze. It's the kind of view people take pictures of, except no picture could ever capture how peaceful it feels. A small wooden nightstand holds a candle in a glass jar, a small stack of books, and a key that looks like it belongs to a fairy tale cottage. The lamp beside them glows softly, like it knows its job is not to be bright, but to be comforting. The room smells like cedarwood and freshly washed blankets. Maybe a bit of mountain air too. It's warm but not stuffy, cozy but not cramped. Everything feels soft around the edges, as if the whole room was designed for slow breathing and long, happy sighs. The caretaker steps inside, and shows you a few things. The extra quilt folded neatly at the end of the bed, the shelf with more books, the hooks for your coat, the little basket filled with herbal teas. They explain it all in that slow, calming voice that probably makes even instructions sound relaxing. You imagine they could read out a tax form, and it would still feel soothing. They hand you the key, smile warmly, and tell you to rest, explore, or do absolutely nothing, whatever your heart feels like doing. Then they leave quietly, closing the door with a gentle click. You're alone in the room now, but not in the lonely way, more like the yes, peace at last way. You place your bag down and let yourself sink into the calm around you. As you unpack a few things, you notice the soft rug under your feet, thick enough to feel like stepping on a tiny cloud. You run your hand across the quilt, and it feels warm, hand-woven, real. Everything in this room seems like it has a story, but not the loud kind of story. More like whispers. You walk over to the window and take a slow breath as you look out. The sky is almost fully purple now, stars beginning to blink into existence. The trees sway in the cool breeze, and somewhere far away you hear the soft, distant rumble of the waterfall again. It blends perfectly with the hush of the wind and the gentle sounds inside the lodge. Standing there, you feel something you haven't felt in a while. Complete calm. The kind that settles not just in your body, but in your thoughts. The kind that makes you feel like you're exactly where you need to be. You turn back to the room, take another slow breath, and let yourself relax even more. You're settled in now, safe, warm, and ready for the peaceful night ahead. You step back out into the hallway, letting the soft click of your room's door fade behind you. The corridor is warm and quiet, lit by lamps that glow like tiny sunsets trapped inside glass. For a moment you just stand there, letting your eyes adjust and enjoying how still everything feels. It's the kind of quiet that doesn't make you feel alone. It makes you feel held. Like the whole building is giving you a slow, reassuring nod. You start to wander, not really with a plan, more like someone who's letting their feet do the deciding. The wooden floorboards greet you with little creaks that feel familiar already. These floors have probably been creaking for decades, maybe centuries, and honestly, they've perfected their craft. Soft, friendly, and just loud enough to remind you you're walking on real wood, not some modern laminate with trust issues. You pass a window on your right, and the night sky stares back at you with a deep blue glow. The last traces of sunset are fading, turning the horizon a gentle purple that wraps around the mountains like a silky scarf. A few early stars blink awake, as if they're clocking in for their night shift. The trees outside sway slowly in the cool breeze, their branches moving like sleepy giants waving goodnight. You keep walking and soon find yourself drifting toward the reading lounge you noticed earlier. The doorway is wide, framed with carved wooden edges shaped like winding branches. Whoever made those carvings clearly had patience and maybe a good cup of tea beside them. Inside, the lounge is a whole different world of calm. The light is even softer here, with candles flickering on shelves and a couple of old lamps glowing from side tables. Everything looks warm, quiet, and slightly golden, like the whole room lives inside a warm filter. A tall bookshelf stretches across the far wall, filled with books of every size and color. Some look brand new. Others look like they've traveled through 3 generations and witnessed more bedtime stories than anyone alive. The spines have titles in gold, brown, faded ink, or no ink at all. Mysteries waiting to be opened by someone who finally has the time to read. A few guests are scattered around the room. One person sits curled up in a huge leather armchair, legs tucked under a blanket, completely lost in their book. Another guest sits at a small wooden table, writing in a journal with slow, thoughtful movements. Nobody looks stressed. Nobody is rushing. Everyone seems to be floating on the same cozy wavelength. You walk deeper into the lounge and spot the fireplace at the center. Another one, smaller than the one in the lobby, but just as charming. The flames stumble softly over the logs, crackling every few seconds in tiny bursts of warmth. You can feel the heat from where you stand, just enough to warm your hands if you held them out. It feels like even the fire knows this place is meant for calmness and whispers. A wooden rocking chair sits near the fire, gently rocking on its own from someone's earlier visit, as if saying, "Hey, I'm still warm. Come sit." You almost consider it. But part of you wants to keep exploring, so you give the rocking chair a mental promise you'll return later and continue wandering. On a small round table, you find a ceramic teapot sitting on a warm tray, steam drifting lazily from its spout. Next to it, a little sign reads, "Help yourself." And honestly, who are you to refuse an invitation like that? You lift the lid slightly and smell something herbal and comforting. Maybe chamomile, maybe lavender, maybe something the lodge grows secretly out back. You pour a little into a cup, and the steam curls up to your face like it's trying to give you a tiny hug. The first sip is warm, gentle, and almost too relaxing. You immediately feel your shoulders drift downward again, as if they've been floating too high all day and finally decided to settle where they belong. Cup in hand, you drift toward the walls decorated with black and white photographs. Each frame shows a different moment from the mountains, a frozen waterfall midwinter, a field of wildflowers in spring, a foggy valley at dawn. The photos are simple but beautiful, almost meditative. You can tell someone took them with love, not just a camera. As you stroll past the images, the wooden floors continue their soft soundtrack beneath your feet. Somewhere in the distance, another guest laughs quietly at something in their book. A small, soft laugh that fits the room perfectly. You smile without really meaning to. This place is contagious with calmness. You walk past a corner table stacked with puzzle boxes and wooden games. A half-finished puzzle sits waiting for someone to come along and add the next piece. For a second, you imagine sitting down and trying to find that one sky blue piece among a sea of identical sky blue pieces. A bold mission, maybe too bold for right now. You promise the puzzle you'll return later too. A gentle breeze drifts through the room from an open window, bringing with it the smell of pine and cool night air. It mixes with the soft heat of the fireplace in a way that feels perfectly balanced. Warm but fresh, cozy but alive. Your teacup warms your hands as you walk to another part of the room. A grandfather clock ticks softly in the corner, its pendulum swinging like it's rocking itself to sleep. The sound is faint, steady, and oddly soothing. Tick, tick, tock, like the mountain itself is breathing slowly with you. You pause near a shelf of old travel journals. Some look handwritten. You pull one out carefully and flip through a few pages. They're filled with notes from past guests, stories of hikes, sketches of mountains, memories of peaceful stays. Somebody even drew a very suspicious-looking mountain goat. The drawing is terrible but charming, and you don't judge. Drawing a goat is harder than people think. You put the journal back gently and walk toward the door leading out of the lounge. Before you leave, you take one last slow look around. The warm light, the guests lost in their books, the fire humming quietly. It all feels safe, timeless, and incredibly soft. You step back into the hallway, teacup empty but your mind full of calm. The lodge hums around you with quiet energy, like every wall is giving off its own little sigh. You take a slow breath, let it out, and smile without even meaning to. You continue down the hallway, exploring the peaceful evening atmosphere, feeling more relaxed with every step. The night is still young. The lodge is still warm, and every corner seems to hold another pocket of calm waiting for you to discover it. You follow the soft glow of warm lights down another hallway. The scent of something delicious drifting toward you long before you even see the kitchen. It's the kind of smell that makes your stomach perk up like, oh, are we eating? Is this happening? Even if you're not hungry, the aroma alone tries to convince you that you absolutely are. The hallway ends at a wooden archway, and beyond it lies the lodge's kitchen, a cozy, rustic wonderland that feels like it belongs in a movie where everyone knows how to bake except you. The moment you step inside, you feel an instant wave of comfort wash over you. It's warm, but not too warm. Just enough to wrap around you like a friendly hug from someone wearing a soft sweater. The kitchen is lit with hanging lamps shaped like little lanterns, casting soft golden light onto everything. Wooden beams crisscross above you, and from them hang bundles of herbs tied with twine, lavender, mint, chamomile, and some mysterious green leaves that you pretend you can identify, but let's be honest, you have no idea. They sway gently in the warm air, releasing quiet scents that float around the room like sleepy little clouds. A kettle sits on the stove, rumbling faintly as steam curls from its spout. The sound is soft and comforting, like the kettle is humming to itself. Somewhere to your right, a pot simmers quietly, filling the kitchen with the smell of fresh vegetables and warm broth. It's not a loud kitchen, it's gentle, peaceful. Even the pots seem to bubble politely. You step further inside, and that's when the caretaker appears again, this time wearing an apron that has a tiny embroidered mountain on it. You're pretty sure it wasn't there before, and you immediately respect the commitment to the theme. They greet you with a soft smile, the same calm one they had earlier, as if the entire lodge runs on their soothing energy alone. Tea? They ask, lifting the kettle slightly, already knowing the answer. You nod because, honestly, who in their right mind would say no? They move with the same slow, steady rhythm you've come to expect from this place. Every motion is peaceful, no rush, not even a hint of stress. They take a ceramic mug from a shelf, a handmade one with uneven edges and a glaze the color of warm honey, and place it gently on the counter. From a wooden box, they select a blend of herbs, crushing a pinch of lavender between their fingers before dropping it into the mug. The scent blooms instantly, soft and calming. They add chamomile, mint, and a tiny leaf of something that smells like a secret passed down through generations. Then they pour the hot water, and the steam rises curling toward your face. You inhale slowly. The smell is warm, floral, comforting in a way that makes you feel like your brain is sitting in a tiny rocking chair somewhere. While your tea steeps, you look around the kitchen. Everything feels handmade. Wooden counters, clay jars, old copper pots hanging on hooks. The walls are lined with shelves filled with jars of dried herbs, spices, tea leaves, and things you've never seen but instantly trust. Everything is labeled in gentle handwriting, the kind that looks like it belongs in a cozy recipe book. A loaf of fresh bread cools on the counter, its crust golden and perfect. You swear you hear angels sing in the distance, or maybe that's just your imagination. Either way, the bread looks like it could solve world problems. Next to it, a pot of vegetable broth simmers quietly, releasing small puffs of steam that smell like comfort and home. The caretaker slices a piece of bread and hands it to you with a tiny smile. "Just baked," they say quietly. You take a bite. The crust is warm and slightly crisp, while the inside is soft and fluffy. You close your eyes automatically, because your taste buds need a moment of silence to fully appreciate what's happening. You try not to moan dramatically, but honestly, it's a close call. The caretaker chuckles softly, as if they've seen this exact reaction 1,000 times. You sit at a small wooden table near the window. The table has just enough imperfections in the wood to look charming. A candle flickers in the center, giving the whole space a warm glow. You wrap your hands around your mug, letting the warmth sink into your palms. Outside the window, the mountains are bathed in twilight. The sky is turning into a deep cobalt blue with streaks of purple and fading pink. The trees sway gently, and tiny dots of lantern light shimmer along the path outside. The whole scene looks like one of those peaceful paintings people hang in offices, except the real version is way better. As you sip your tea, a sense of deep calm settles inside you. The kitchen's warmth mixes with the cool mountain air drifting through the slightly open window, creating the perfect balance. Every sip feels like a soft exhale. The caretaker sits across from you for a moment, resting their hands on the table. They tell you a little about the herbs they grow in a garden behind the lodge. Apparently, lavender loves the mountain soil here, mint grows like a rebellious teenager, and chamomile needs constant gentle encouragement. You nod along, pretending you understand plant behavior. They smile knowingly. You talk softly for a bit, though talking is a strong word. It's more like exchanging warm, slow thoughts. Nothing heavy, nothing stressful, just small stories, simple jokes, and little bits of peace passed back and forth. When your teacup is empty, the caretaker refills it without asking, because that's just the kind of magic they work in this place. You thank them, and they wave it off like it's nothing, though you're pretty sure tea making is one of their superpowers. As the night gets darker outside, the kitchen seems to grow even cozier. The herbs above you move gently in the warm air, the kettle lets out a soft sigh, and the candle flame dances slow like it's getting sleepy too. You linger a little longer, taking another sip, letting the warmth settle into your chest. Everything feels so simple, so quiet, so wonderfully slow. Eventually, you stand up and thank the caretaker again. They give you a small nod, the kind that says, "Come back anytime," but in the chillest, most comforting way possible. You step back into the hallway, carrying the last bit of warmth with you. Your body feels loose, relaxed, soft around the edges. And the night feels like it's just beginning to open its calm arms for you. If you've ever walked through a forest at night, you probably know that the dark doesn't show up all at once. It arrives slowly, like someone dimming the lights in a giant room. That's exactly how it felt when I stepped back outside after dinner. The sky was still holding onto the last bit of blue, but the deeper corners between the pine trees were already turning into soft pockets of shadow. The lodge's warm lanterns glowed behind me, and for a moment I just stood there, breathing in the cold night air and thinking, yep, this is the kind of place where my phone would definitely stop working. And somehow, that felt good. Pine needles made a faint crunch under my feet as I walked toward the little path that curved behind the lodge. I'd heard the waterfall earlier, way off in the distance, and now I wanted to see it, or at least get close enough to hear it properly. The air felt cooler out here, but not in a sharp, freezing way. More like a chilled blanket, if that makes sense. The kind of cold that wakes you up just enough, but doesn't make you run back inside crying for a heater. Every few steps, the wind pushed gently through the tall trees, making them sway like giant sleepy dancers. The smell of pine was everywhere, and it mixed with the faint trace of wood smoke coming from the lodge chimney. It was such a perfect mix that I wished someone would turn it into a candle. I'd buy at least 10. The path got narrower as I walked, but little glowing lanterns lit the way. They hung from curved iron hooks, and each one had a small flickering flame trapped inside. The glass around them was fogged up, like the lanterns were breathing softly in the cold. The light made the mist dance around my feet, and every now and then I saw tiny shapes, maybe bugs, maybe fairies, dart through the glow. Probably bugs, but let's pretend fairies. It sounds nicer. As I kept walking, the sound of the waterfall slowly came alive. At first it was just a faint hush, something you might mistake for wind. But the closer I got, the more it grew into a soft, steady roar. It felt kind of like the mountain was humming a lullaby. I followed the trail around another bend, and that's where I saw it, a small clearing, just big enough for a wooden bench and a view straight toward the waterfall. Now, don't imagine a giant Niagara Falls type drama. This was a gentle waterfall, the kind you could actually relax near without worrying about being washed into another country. The water streamed down smooth grey rocks, shining a little in the moonlight. There was mist rising from the pool below, floating upward like sleepy ghosts stretching before bedtime. I sat on the bench, which creaked under me like it had been there for 100 years. It was a polite creak though, like the bench was saying, "Oh, hello there. Haven't had company in a while." The wood felt cold through my clothes, but after a minute or two, my body adjusted. Or maybe the peacefulness just distracted me from caring. The sound of the waterfall wrapped around everything, steady and calming. After a while, I noticed smaller sounds tucked inside it. The tiny splash of water hitting a rock at a strange angle. The soft tapping of droplets falling from the overhanging branches. The distant chirp of a night bird calling out like it had something important to say, but forgot halfway through. I leaned back a little, letting my shoulders drop. Up above, the sky had mostly darkened. Only a thin ribbon of blue remained on the horizon, melting slowly into shades of deep purple and quiet black. Stars began to blink awake, one by one, like they were stretching after a long nap. The moon peeked out from behind a drifting cloud, round and calm, not too bright, just right. Sitting there felt unreal in the best way. No noise from cars, no glowing screens demanding attention. Just the waterfall, the forest, and the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. The kind that feels full of things you didn't notice before. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with cold air and pine. It tasted clean, like the world had just been freshly washed. My thoughts slowed down, not in a sleepy way yet, but in a peaceful, "you're safe here" kind of way. You know that feeling you get when you finally sit down after a long day and someone hands you a warm drink. That was the exact energy of the moment, even though no drink was involved. A little breeze brushed past me, nudging a few leaves across the ground. They shuffled along like tiny, lazy dancers practicing one last routine before bed. Somewhere behind the waterfall, a frog made a soft croak, sounding both polite and deeply confused. It made me smile. As I watched the water falling, I started imagining the countless days it must have been doing this exact same thing. Day after day, season after season unchanged. No rush, no stress, just water, flowing exactly where it needed to go. I envied that a little. If water could be chilled 24/7, maybe I could learn something from it. Step 1. Stop worrying about everything all the time. Step 2. Take naps more often. Step 3. Always look dramatic in moonlight. After maybe 10 minutes, or maybe 20, time felt kind of loose. I noticed the mist from the waterfall drifting further into the clearing. Tiny droplets floated through the air, landing softly on my face and hair. They were cold at first, but the more they settled, the more refreshing they felt. Like nature was giving me a gentle splash in the face and saying, "Relax. You're doing great." My eyes grew heavier without me noticing. Something about the rhythm of the waterfall made my mind drift toward that floaty, half-awake state. You know, the one where you're not fully asleep, but you're also not fully here. I let my eyes close for a moment, just listening. The waterfall kept flowing. The wind kept whispering. The forest kept breathing. And I just sat there, letting all of it sink into me like warm tea. After a while, I opened my eyes again. The lanterns on the path glowed softly behind me, waiting. The moon had climbed higher now, casting pale silver light across the clearing. It made the water shine like long, smooth ribbons. Everything looked softer in the night, quieter, safer, almost magical. I stood up slowly, stretching my arms a little. My back made a tiny crack noise, the kind that says, "Yep, you've been sitting too long," but even that felt peaceful. I took one last long look at the waterfall, like trying to save the moment in my memory forever. Then I turned back toward the path, ready to follow the gentle lantern lights back to the warm lodge. The forest felt different on the way back. Not darker, just sleepier. like it was reassuring me that the night was friendly here. The lantern flames flickered as I passed them, and each one seemed to nod lightly, as if saying good night. And with the waterfall's soft echo fading behind me, I made my way back toward the cozy wooden lodge, feeling lighter than when I first stepped outside, and maybe just a little bit closer to dreaming. By the time I reached the lodge again, the night felt deeper, softer, almost like the mountain had quietly pulled a giant blanket over everything. Warm light glowed through the windows, spilling onto the wooden porch in long golden rectangles. It was the kind of glow that instantly makes you think of crackling fireplaces, warm drinks, and extremely comfortable socks. I stepped inside, and the familiar heat wrapped around me like a slow hug. Not a fast hug, those are chaotic. This was definitely a slow hug. Inside, the main hall felt different from earlier, quieter. Most of the guests had drifted off to their rooms by now, leaving behind the faint echo of conversations that had floated through the lodge at dinner time. The fireplace was still burning though, steady and calm, sending little sparks of orange dancing upward every few seconds. I swear that fireplace had personality, the kind that listens to everyone's problems without judging. I walked over to one of the big armchairs near the fire. The chair was wide, soft and warm, like it had been waiting for exactly one person to sit in it. Lucky me. When I sank into it, the cushions sighed in a way that almost said, "Finally." My legs stretched out without me even telling them to. That's how comfy it was. The room smelled like a mix of wood smoke, pine logs, and something sweet from the kitchen. Maybe cinnamon, maybe honey, maybe both. Whatever it was, the smell felt like someone had baked comfort into the air. A small table sat next to the chair, holding a cup of herbal tea that someone must have left behind. Steam curled up from it in slow swirls, like it was stretching after a long nap. I picked it up, checked that it wasn't claimed by some invisible tea ghost, and took a sip. It tasted like flowers and warmth and sleepiness all blended together. While I sat there, the fire popped lightly, sending a tiny spark upward. The sound echoed in the almost empty room. From outside, I could hear the muffled wind brushing against the windows, gentle and slow. Somewhere upstairs, a door clicked shut. Somewhere in the back, maybe in the kitchen, someone laughed. Everything felt distant but friendly, like the whole lodge was winding down. I looked around the room. The wooden walls had carvings of old trees, mountains, and little animals hidden between the shapes. I hadn't noticed them earlier. The animals looked like they were sneaking around the edges of the designs. Tiny foxes, small owls, even a bear that looked suspiciously like it was smiling. The lanterns on the walls flickered just enough to make the carvings move a little in the light, like they were alive. It didn't feel creepy though, just magical in a quiet, bedtime story sort of way. After sitting by the fire for a while, I felt my eyelids getting heavier. Not the sudden, "Oh no, I'm falling asleep," heavy, but the slow, "your brain is putting on pajamas," kind of heavy. The warmth, the gentle sounds, the soft chair, all of it worked together like a team determined to make me relax. Even the tea felt like it was doing its part. I stretched my arms, yawned a little, then stood up before the chair convinced me to stay forever. The lodge hallway was dim, lit by smaller lanterns that hung from the wooden beams above. Shadows stretched long across the floor, but they were soft shadows, cozy ones. Shadows that looked like they just wanted to chill. I started walking down the hall, feeling the wooden floor creak under my steps. Not loud creaks, more like tiny whispers. The walls were lined with framed pictures of mountains and forests, probably taken by someone who spent most of their time outside and hardly ever indoors. Each picture looked like a place I wanted to nap in. As I turned a corner, I noticed a small reading nook tucked between two doors. It had a built-in bench with soft cushions, a single lamp glowing above it, and a stack of books piled on a little shelf. The lamp shone just bright enough to make the space look like a secret spot. The kind of spot where stories hide. I couldn't resist. I sat down for just a minute, sinking into the cushions. They puffed around me like they were trying to secure me in place. I picked up a random book from the pile. It had no title on the spine, just a plain, faded cover. When I opened it, the pages smelled like old paper and dust and memories. The text inside was written in a gentle, looping handwriting. It wasn't even printed. Someone had written the whole thing by hand. The story inside was about a traveler who wandered through mountains, meeting strange animals who spoke in riddles and humans who lived in tree houses high above the ground. Each page felt like it was written by someone who loved quiet adventures. My eyes brushed over the words slowly, not really reading every detail, but feeling the softness of the story. It fit the night perfectly. After a few minutes, I closed the book and put it back on the shelf, careful not to disturb the rest of the stack. Then I stood up again and continued my slow walk toward my room. The hallway stretched ahead, quiet and welcoming. The lanterns flickered in gentle rhythms, and the shadows on the walls moved in slow waves. When I reached my door, it looked exactly the same as earlier, but somehow cozier. The wooden surface had a warm glow from the lantern nearby, and the brass handle felt cool when I touched it. I opened the door, and the room greeted me with that same soft scent of pine and fresh sheets. The bed looked even more inviting now. The blankets were slightly rumpled from earlier, like the bed had been waiting and shifting around, trying to get comfy before I returned. The little fireplace in the corner crackled softly, its orange glow filling the room with warmth. I kicked off my shoes, tossed my jacket on the chair, and walked over to the window. The night outside was completely still. The trees stood tall in the dark, swaying only when the wind brushed past them. The moon hung high, casting a pale light over the landscape. I could barely hear the waterfall now, just a faint whisper in the distance like a memory. I stood there for a moment, resting my forehead lightly against the cool window glass. The contrast between the cold outside and the warmth inside felt strangely comforting. My body relaxed even more, like it was finally agreeing to let go of whatever energy it had been holding on to. After a few breaths, I turned away and walked back to the bed. The mattress sank perfectly beneath me as I sat down. I pulled the blanket over my legs, letting the warmth settle in. The pillow felt like a soft cloud under my head, and the fire's glow flickered gently across the room. The silence wrapped around me soft and thick, like a cushion for my thoughts. It wasn't empty silence. It was peaceful, steady, the kind that makes your mind slow down and your breathing deepen. I stretched one last time, rolled onto my side, and let my eyes drift half closed. The crackling fire, the whisper of the wind outside, the faint echo of the waterfall far away, all of it blended together into one soft lullaby, settling into the corners of the room like a warm mist. And as I lay there, wrapped in the cozy mountain quiet, sleep began to pull me in gently, like a slow tide coming to shore. The lodge, the mountains, the night, they all seemed to breathe with me, steady and calm, as I drifted deeper into that soft, dreamy place where the world finally loosens its grip and lets you rest. By the time I reached the lodge again, the night felt deeper, softer, almost like the mountain had quietly pulled a giant blanket over everything. Warm light glowed through the windows, spilling onto the wooden porch in long golden rectangles. It was the kind of glow that instantly makes you think of crackling fireplaces, warm drinks, and extremely comfortable socks. I stepped inside, and the familiar heat wrapped around me like a slow hug. Not a fast hug. Those are chaotic. This was definitely a slow hug. Inside, the main hall felt different from earlier. Quieter. Most of the guests had drifted off to their rooms by now, leaving behind the faint echo of conversations that had floated through the lodge at dinner time. The fireplace was still burning though, steady and calm, sending little sparks of orange dancing upward every few seconds. I swear that fireplace had personality, the kind that listens to everyone's problems without judging. I walked over to one of the big armchairs near the fire. The chair was wide, soft, and warm, like it had been waiting for exactly one person to sit in it. Lucky me. When I sank into it, the cushions sighed in a way that almost said, "Finally." My legs stretched out without me even telling them to. That's how comfy it was. The room smelled like a mix of wood smoke, pine logs, and something sweet from the kitchen. Maybe cinnamon, maybe honey, maybe both. Whatever it was, the smell felt like someone had baked comfort into the air. A small table sat next to the chair, holding a cup of herbal tea that someone must have left behind. Steam curled up from it in slow swirls, like it was stretching after a long nap. I picked it up, checked that it wasn't claimed by some invisible tea ghost, and took a sip. It tasted like flowers and warmth and sleepiness all blended together. While I sat there, the fire popped lightly, sending a tiny spark upward. The sound echoed in the almost empty room. From outside, I could hear the muffled wind brushing against the windows, gentle and slow. Somewhere upstairs, a door clicked shut. Somewhere in the back, maybe in the kitchen, someone laughed. Everything felt distant but friendly, like the whole lodge was winding down. I looked around the room. The wooden walls had carvings of old trees, mountains, and little animals hidden between the shapes. I hadn't noticed them earlier. The animals looked like they were sneaking around the edges of the designs. Tiny foxes, small owls, even a bear that looked suspiciously like it was smiling. The lanterns on the walls flickered just enough to make the carvings move a little in the light, like they were alive. It didn't feel creepy though, just magical in a quiet, bedtime story sort of way. After sitting by the fire for a while, I felt my eyelids getting heavier. Not the sudden, "Oh no, I'm falling asleep," heavy, but the slow, "your brain is putting on pajamas," kind of heavy. The warmth, the gentle sounds, the soft chair, all of it worked together like a team determined to make me relax. Even the tea felt like it was doing its part. I stretched my arms, yawned a little, then stood up before the chair convinced me to stay forever. The lodge hallway was dim, lit by smaller lanterns that hung from the wooden beams above. Shadows stretched long across the floor, but they were soft shadows, cozy ones. Shadows that looked like they just wanted to chill. I started walking down the hall, feeling the wooden floor creak under my steps. Not loud creaks, more like tiny whispers. The walls were lined with framed pictures of mountains and forests, probably taken by someone who spent most of their time outside and hardly ever indoors. Each picture looked like a place I wanted to nap in. As I turned a corner, I noticed a small reading nook tucked between two doors. It had a built-in bench with soft cushions, a single lamp glowing above it, and a stack of books piled on a little shelf. The lamp shone just bright enough to make the space look like a secret spot. The kind of spot where stories hide. I couldn't resist. I sat down for just a minute, sinking into the cushions. They puffed around me like they were trying to secure me in place. I picked up a random book from the pile. It had no title on the spine, just a plain, faded cover. When I opened it, the pages smelled like old paper and dust and memories. The text inside was written in a gentle, looping handwriting. It wasn't even printed. Someone had written the whole thing by hand. The story inside was about a traveler who wandered through mountains, meeting strange animals who spoke in riddles and humans who lived in tree houses high above the ground. Each page felt like it was written by someone who loved quiet adventures. My eyes brushed over the words slowly, not really reading every detail, but feeling the softness of the story. It fit the night perfectly. After a few minutes, I closed the book and put it back on the shelf, careful not to disturb the rest of the stack. Then I stood up again and continued my slow walk toward my room. The hallway stretched ahead, quiet and welcoming. The lanterns flickered in gentle rhythms, and the shadows on the walls moved in slow waves. When I reached my door, it looked exactly the same as earlier, but somehow cozier. The wooden surface had a warm glow from the lantern nearby, and the brass handle felt cool when I touched it. I opened the door, and the room greeted me with that same soft scent of pine and fresh sheets. The bed looked even more inviting now. The blankets were slightly rumpled from earlier, like the bed had been waiting and shifting around, trying to get comfy before I returned. The little fireplace in the corner crackled softly, its orange glow filling the room with warmth. I kicked off my shoes, tossed my jacket on the chair, and walked over to the window. The night outside was completely still. The trees stood tall in the dark, swaying only when the wind brushed past them. The moon hung high, casting a pale light over the landscape. I could barely hear the waterfall now, just a faint whisper in the distance, like a memory. I stood there for a moment, resting my forehead lightly against the cool window glass. The contrast between the cold outside and the warmth inside felt strangely comforting. My body relaxed even more, like it was finally agreeing to let go of whatever energy it had been holding on to. After a few breaths, I turned away and walked back to the bed. The mattress sank perfectly beneath me as I sat down. I pulled the blanket over my legs, letting the warmth settle in. The pillow felt like a soft cloud under my head, and the fire's glow flickered gently across the room. The silence wrapped around me, soft and thick, like a cushion for my thoughts. It wasn't empty silence. It was peaceful, steady, the kind that makes your mind slow down and your breathing deepen. I stretched one last time, rolled onto my side, and let my eyes drift half closed. The crackling fire, the whisper of the wind outside, the faint echo of the waterfall far away, all of it blended together into one soft lullaby, settling into the corners of the room like a warm mist. And as I lay there, wrapped in the cozy mountain quiet, sleep began to pull me in gently, like a slow tide coming to shore. The lodge, the mountains, the night, they all seemed to breathe with me, steady and calm, as I drifted deeper into that soft, dreamy place where the world finally loosens its grip and lets you rest. The morning light didn't rush into the room. It slipped in slowly, like it was trying not to wake you too fast. Soft golden rays crept through the curtains and settled on the floor first, then climbed up the walls, then finally reached the bed where I was still half asleep, half dreaming about absolutely nothing. The kind of sleep where your brain turns into a warm marshmallow. I opened my eyes a little, just enough to see the blurry shape of the window, glowing with early sunshine. It wasn't a loud morning. No bright beams shouting, "Good morning," at your face. Just a quiet, gentle reminder that the world still existed outside the blankets. I didn't move yet. The bed felt too comfortable, like it was holding me hostage in the softest way possible. The blanket was warm, the pillow cool, and the room smelled faintly of pine wood and the last bits of last night's fire. Somewhere far off, a bird chirped. Just one bird, not a whole choir. A calm, responsible bird who understood that people were still sleeping. Eventually, I sat up slowly, yawning with the kind of stretch that makes your neck crack in a very suspicious but satisfying way. My hair was doing whatever it wanted, and honestly, I respected its freedom. The room around me was filled with soft morning light, giving everything a warm glow. Even the chair in the corner looked friendly. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain aside. The mountain outside looked like it had spent the night meditating. Soft mist drifted between the trees, and the sun rested gently on the peaks, painting them in shades of gold and soft orange. The air looked crisp, the kind of crisp that almost makes you want to run outside and breathe dramatically. Almost. I wasn't awake enough for dramatic breathing yet. The waterfall flickered in the distance like a silver ribbon, catching bits of sunlight. The wind moved slowly through the pines, making them sway like sleepy dancers. Everything felt peaceful in a way that made my soul stretch out and sigh. After staring at the view for a long moment, I finally grabbed my sweater and stepped out into the hallway. The wooden floor was cool under my feet, but not cold enough to make me regret my life choices. The lanterns on the walls were dim now, their job mostly done for the night. The lodge felt different in the morning, still cozy, but fresher, lighter. As I reached the main hall, I heard soft clinking sounds. Someone was already up. I walked inside to find the caretaker setting a long wooden table for breakfast. They moved with the same calm energy as always, placing bowls, plates, and little jars of honey and jam with the precision of someone arranging a peaceful morning ritual. Everything looked homemade, warm, inviting. "Good morning," they said in a soft voice, not wanting to scare the morning away. I greeted them back, still blinking the sleep out of my eyes. They smiled and nodded toward the fireplace, where a fresh fire was burning, small and gentle. The flames glowed like tiny pieces of morning sun. On the table, there were fresh loaves of bread, steam rising gently from the crusts. A pot of oatmeal simmered nearby, and bowls of berries sat next to small jars of creamy yogurt. The air smelled like warm grains and sweet fruit, with a hint of cinnamon floating through like a sleepy cloud. I sat down at the table just as the caretaker placed a cup of warm herbal tea in front of me. It smelled like mint and chamomile, not too strong, just soft enough to wake me up without being bossy. I wrapped my hands around the cup and let the warmth seep in. The caretaker sat across from me, stirring their own tea casually. "Sleep well?" they asked. "Better than I expected," I answered, because honestly that bed could probably fix global stress levels if we let it. They chuckled softly, the kind of chuckle that didn't need to be loud to be felt. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping our tea, listening to the quiet crackle of the fire and the soft sounds of the mountain waking up outside. After a bit, I reached for a slice of bread. The crust was crisp, and the inside was soft and warm, almost melting in my hands. I spread a layer of honey over it, watching it drip slowly like golden syrup. The first bite tasted like morning sunshine. Yes, that sounds dramatic, but it's true. I took a second bite immediately, because self-control is overrated when the bread is this good. The caretaker set down a small bowl of fresh berries beside me. They were the deep, rich colors of early morning: dark blue, bright red, soft purple. I added some to my oatmeal, stirring them in until the warm oats turned flecked with color. Each bite tasted fresh and comforting, like something made with patience. A few other guests wandered in slowly, still wrapped in sweaters and sleepiness. They moved quietly, as if the morning atmosphere had a volume limit. Everyone whispered greetings, grabbed tea, filled their plates, and found seats. The room began to fill with that peaceful morning buzz, the gentle clinking of spoons, the soft rustle of people sitting down, the humming noise of content humans having their first warm food of the day. Outside the large windows, the sun continued to brighten the world bit by bit. Birds began to sing lightly, but thankfully not in an annoying way. The trees glowed a soft green under the sunlight, and patches of mist drifted across the forest like slow, moving clouds that hadn't made up their minds yet. After breakfast, I stepped outside for a moment onto the wooden porch. The air was cool and crisp, wrapping around me like a fresh morning scarf. The porch boards were smooth under my feet, worn from years of footsteps just like mine. I leaned against the railing and breathed in the mountain air deeply, one of those long breaths that fills your whole chest and somehow your soul too. The world felt calm in a way that cities never quite manage. No honking, no people yelling, no 50 notifications going off at the same time, just wind, trees, sun, and the quiet voice of water running somewhere far away. The caretaker joined me for a moment, holding their own mug of tea. "It's always like this in the mornings," they said, their voice soft and warm. the mountains wake up slow. I nodded, because I could feel that. Everything here moved slow, but in the best possible way. The kind of slow that makes you realize how fast you've been moving everywhere else. We stood there together for a moment, not talking, just watching the sunlight stretch across the peaks. A bird landed on the railing for a second, looked at us like it was judging our fashion choices, then flew away again. Very rude, but also kind of adorable. Eventually, I wandered back inside and walked to the main hall again. The fireplace was still burning gently, and the soft morning chatter of guests mixed with the crackling sound. The lodge felt like it was smiling. If buildings could smile, this one definitely was. I sat in the same armchair from the night before, letting the warmth soak into me again. My body relaxed almost instantly, sinking into the cushions like it was melting. The tea in my hand steamed softly, drifting upward in lazy swirls. The day ahead was open and slow, no hurry, no schedule, just the promise of more quiet moments, warm food, soft blankets, and peaceful mountain air. As I sat there breathing easy, letting the morning settle around me, I felt the kind of calm that doesn't just touch you. It settles inside you like a warm stone. The lodge, the mountains, the soft morning sun, everything blended together into a gentle, steady peace. The kind of peace you don't rush. The kind you let unfold slowly, like a story meant to be lived one soft breath at a time. The rest of the morning moved in that slow, pleasant way that makes time feel soft. I sat in the armchair for a while longer, letting the warmth of the fire melt into me, and then I finally stood up and stretched. My body cracked in at least 3 places, which I chose to believe meant I was healing, not breaking. The lodge felt different now, not in a bad way, just in that quiet, steady way you feel when a wonderful visit is starting to come to an end. The hallways were brighter with sunlight, the wooden floors glowing a warm gold. Guests wandered about, some heading outside for a walk, others sipping tea in corners. There was no rush anywhere. It seemed like the mountain didn't allow rushing. I went back to my room to gather my things. The door creaked softly when I pushed it open, almost like it was saying, "Welcome back, one last time." The bed was neatly made again. Those magical lodge hands worked fast. The fireplace had burned down to a few glowing embers, giving off a little warmth that made the room feel alive. My bag sat near the chair where I'd left it. Packing didn't take long. I hadn't really brought much besides a sweater, some socks, and the intention to relax, which I very proudly accomplished. I folded my things slowly, not because folding takes strategy, but because I wasn't in a hurry to leave this cozy bubble. Once everything was packed, I took a final slow look around the room. The wooden beams overhead, the soft lantern by the bed, the faint smell of pine that clung to every corner, it all felt familiar now, safe, gentle. Like the kind of room your mind will replay on quiet nights, just to feel calm again. I placed my hand on the doorknob and paused, letting the stillness settle for a moment, then stepped out. The hallway was warm and bright, sunlight slipping through the tall windows. I walked toward the main hall again, hearing faint noises of breakfast cleanup happening in the distance. The caretaker was there by the long wooden table, gathering empty cups and small jars of honey. Their calm energy filled the whole room as usual. They spotted me and gave a small smile, the kind that says a lot without needing words. All set to head out. They asked, their voice soft. I nodded, though part of me wanted to say, actually no, I'm moving in permanently. But I decided to keep that part inside. No need to expose my emotional chaos at 10 a.m. They motioned toward a little wooden counter near the door, the kind where people usually check in or out. Except this one looked like it had been carved by someone who really loved wood. Every edge was smooth, and the corners held tiny designs of mountains and moon shapes. I placed my small bag next to me and leaned on the counter gently as the caretaker wrote something in a big book. The pages were thick and creamy, filled with names. I wondered how many people had sat right here, feeling the same reluctant goodbye I felt now. They closed the book softly and handed me a small pouch tied with a string. A little something for the road, they said. I opened it and found a tiny bundle of dried herbs inside. Lavender mint. Chamomile. Probably from the same garden they'd told me about. It smelled like everything peaceful from the whole trip. I felt a warm little squeeze in my chest. Thank you, I said, meaning it more than those 2 words could express. They nodded like they understood exactly what I wasn't saying out loud. Before leaving, I walked toward the fireplace in the main hall one more time. It was still glowing gently, the flames curling around the logs like they were just waking up for the day. I held my hands toward the warmth for a moment, letting it soak into my skin. There's something about fireplaces. You can stand in front of one for 2 seconds or 20 minutes, and either way, it makes you feel like everything's okay. With a slow exhale, I turned and headed for the front door. When I stepped outside, the morning air felt cool and crisp, brushing against my cheeks like a friendly hello. The porch boards creaked softly under my steps, the same cozy sound they'd made when I arrived. The mountains stood tall all around the lodge, glowing in the sunlight. The pine trees swayed gently, whispering in their leafy way. I took the first step down the porch, then stopped to look back at the lodge. The wooden walls glowed golden. Smoke drifted lazily from the chimney. The lantern by the door still swayed a little in the breeze. The whole place looked like it had been drawn out of a dream and placed here just long enough for me to visit. The caretaker stepped out onto the porch behind me, hands tucked into their apron pockets. Safe travels, they said softly. I nodded again, feeling that warm, peaceful ache you get when leaving someplace you really liked. The cobblestone path stretched out ahead of me, winding gently down the slope. As I started walking, each step felt slow and thoughtful. The gravel crunched under my boots in that soft, satisfying way, and the forest around me shimmered with morning light. Birds hopped around in the branches. Sunlight cut through the trees in long, golden beams. The air smelled like pine needles and cold water and distant adventure. Halfway down the path, I stopped for a second and closed my eyes. The wind brushed past me gently, like a soft hand on my shoulder. I could still hear the waterfall somewhere far off, its quiet murmur blending with the rustling leaves. For a moment, it felt like the whole mountain was giving me one last calm breath to carry with me, one last little piece of stillness. I opened my eyes and kept walking. As the trees thinned out, I reached the edge of the forest. The sunlight brightened, the sky stretched wide, and the world opened up once again. Not loud, not overwhelming, just bigger. I turned around for one final look. The lodge peeked through the trees, small and warm and safe, like a tiny pocket of peace hidden in the mountains. A soft smile tugged at my face. Not a big, dramatic smile, just a quiet one, the kind that comes from deep inside. Then I took a breath, adjusted the strap of my small bag, and stepped forward. The cobblestone path led on. The morning air drifted with me, and the calm of the mountain lodge followed behind like a gentle echo, settling quietly into my memory, something I could return to any time I needed warmth, safety, or a slow exhale. Not the end, just a peaceful pause carried with me wherever I go.